much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back here in Barcelona for the European Blockchain Convention, at least fourth or fifth time that I'm here. So it's a pleasure, again, to be here with the team. They're doing a great job. It's great to see how much they've developed. I'm Tommaso Astazi. I'm the Policy Director at Blockchain for Europe, which is a Brussels-based trade association representing the blockchain industry, the crypto space with European policymakers. So all the MiCA regulation that you're going to hear about in this panel, well, we have been trying to make it a tiny bit better for the industry. I know there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of problems, and we're going to discuss that with this great panel that we have. But at the same time, I think we can also be happy about the fact that we have MiCA in Europe. So we're going to talk about that and about the impact that the MiCA regulation already has on the industry. We have some very interesting perspectives here on stage. As you will hear directly from them, they've either gone through the MiCA licensing process themselves, or they've been supporting companies and entities that want to get a MiCA license. So they've been engaging with the different regulators in different jurisdictions. So that's also going to give us an interesting perspective. And then we maybe can talk about what's coming up. You know, how do we really ensure that regulation goes at the same pace of innovation, if that is possible at all. But at least what can we do in the future, what is coming up, what to pay attention to in the coming months, coming from Brussels, but also from all over Europe. So without further ado, I'll let my speakers introduce themselves, and then we get started and we have a nice conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marina Villalonga, partner at Asensi Abogados, which is a Spanish-based law firm. We focus in gambling, gaming, and crypto assets regulations.
Hello, good afternoon. Nicolas Louvet. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Coinhouse. We are a French broker, crypto broker. We are the first one also regulated in France with the former French regulation, which was before MiCA. And we are applying also for MiCA. And we deliver crypto asset services, investment services to retail and SME, SMB, enterprise, and some institutional customer based in France and also in Luxembourg, where we are regulated.
Hi everyone, my name is Balva. I'm the general manager at ADAN, which is the biggest association representing crypto companies in France, and we also work with other associations in Brussels, of course. Before that, I spent 10 years in the crypto industry, mostly in crypto consulting, and I also worked for D-Block, which was the first company to get the MiCA license in France.
So I'm Matteo. I'm a senior associate and the head of crypto at MK Fintech Partners Limited. We are a law firm specializing in crypto and fintech based in Malta, and we effectively assist clients throughout their application process, assist them with any of their legal needs, to make sure that they're covered from a legal and regulatory perspective.
My name is Mykolas. I am with a global Bybit team. We're a MiCA license. We're a global exchange, although we'd like to be called ourselves as a finance company. We're present in Spain. We have the best country manager, Alan, here, who's recording me, I can see now. But I'm really excited to be here, and thank you, Tommaso, for having this exciting conversation.
Thank you so much. And indeed, we want to have an exciting conversation. I think we all get too bored when panel debates are, you know, one question after the other, and everybody's just responding and reading from their notes. We really want to have a conversation. So we're going to have it, you know, keep it flowing. And we also would love to get questions at the end. So get your questions ready. But in the meantime, we start in a bit more of a traditional way, again, going around, with the first question being, what is your perspective on the MiCA framework? So how, you know, especially from your specific perspective, the work that you've been doing, how is MiCA really impacting your business or the work that you're doing with your clients, and anything that you want to share in terms of your engagement with national competent authorities? We start from that, and then we're going to get the conversation started.
Well, I guess I'm okay. First of all, I have to say that MiCA regulations, I don't want to be obvious here. We all know about MiCA. We are not going to say the obvious thing, but MiCA regulation has been the first in the world taking care of the crypto assets. And as Juan Carlos Salinas said, being the first is not easy. So you are taking the risk. You are departing from nowhere. It's a test, and of course, it's not perfect, and there will be mistakes that should be addressed. So we cannot wait for the perfect regulation at the first shot. Of course, now there are other regulations all over the world. They are mirroring MiCA. They are trying to address these mistakes or these things that could be improved. So of course, we need to work on it. And from the Spanish perspective, which I guess I'm the only Spanish based here, it has been very well received by the government, by the supervisor, the regulator. The CNV in here, the Spanish regulator, is really trying to keep the pace, is really trying to learn. They are hiring people, they are training themselves. It's not easy to understand the regulation. It's not easy for us, it's not easy for them. We help each other with conversations, with debates, with dialogue, but of course we are all learning. Spanish is not being the most fast track to get the MiCA license, but they are trying to do as best as they can. They try to learn. They are putting all the resources they have. So I think that we are not so bad here.
All right, so we start from Spain, literally, right? We're here, and it's really great to hear the perspective of someone who's dealing on a daily basis with the Spanish regulators. And indeed, I think it's something that everybody is understanding also throughout this conference, that the regulators in Spain have taken a good approach, right? They're ready to listen, they're ready to engage. But again, maybe they haven't really managed to give out so many MiCA licenses yet, right? So we go to the other opposite now, right? We go to France. We go to France where France has taken actually a lead even before MiCA, right? So we can talk about the PSAN framework, but now I think the AMF and the CPR, right? They are the two regulators based in Paris. They are actually being a pretty good example of how, at least they should try and approach the licensing process, the engagement with companies. Nicolas, you want to tell us a bit more about your expertise, your experience in France?
Yes, you're right, Tommaso. France has been leading this regulation framework in the past. You have also to recognize that the French regulation was very good, at least to defining the activity, but it was mostly focusing on AML, CFT. So not all what is included today in MiCA, which is anyway something that was we were all calling for regulation. I was calling for regulation. I think it's something which is important for the development of our activity, for the maturity, for the protection of the customer. But this MiCA regulation is a huge step compared to what we had in the past. That's why it's not so easy. We are working on it, for instance, at Coinhouse, and we have filed our application. It's under the process now. But what my experience is, it's especially going into the details, but some aspects of the regulation, such as the segregation of funds of our clients, has a huge impact from my perspective on the liquidity venue and the way we source liquidity to sourcing providers. So, in other words, we used to work with exchanges because we are a broker, and it's something that is not so compatible with MiCA, for instance. So we had to totally change our way to execute order and to source our liquidity, which has a huge impact on the development, the tech, and the way it works. So it's a significant work also to be compliant with MiCA if you really want to fulfill all the compliance aspect, and if you want to be also compatible with the French way of interpreting MiCA. I'm sure that we are going to discuss about this, but it has a huge impact. And we are probably also going to discuss later, but it's not only about MiCA, but it's also about the travel rule implementation, DORA, and some other new regulation that have to be taken into account and which has a huge impact in terms of cost development, product development, and sometimes it's even not so easy because you have to count on some providers to be able to answer those compliance issues, but your providers does not necessarily have the maturity to provide the right solution. If you look at the travel rule, for instance, there is no solution today regarding the travel rule if you take all the points that has to be fulfilled. You have part of it, but you don't have any global solution. It's okay, probably. We know it, but it means that it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of maturity. There is a lack of maturity, John.
So even in a jurisdiction where, we know there is maturity, we know there is understanding, we know that the French authorities have taken a very proactive approach to the regulation of the industry in France and everything, there's still a lot of challenges, there's still a lot of questions, especially as Nicolas was talking about, the interplay of the different pieces of legislation, right? MiCA, whatever you want to call it, is just one piece. It's the most important, of course, because it provides the comprehensive structure, definitions, and clarifications on who's a service provider, what is a crypto asset service, and all of that. But then I think we already heard a couple of other pieces of legislation still coming from Brussels that are complicating the life of crypto companies. Maybe, Claire, you want to touch upon a few of those? I think you have a very interesting French perspective, but also, the work that ADAN is doing at EU level together with Blockchain for Europe and other associations. You probably can share a few more thoughts on this.
Of course, and I agree with Nicolas. MiCA is giving more visibility to the industry, and MiCA is forcing the industry to become more mature, which is a good thing. And for example, at ADAN, we are seeing more and more large corporations become a member of our association, and we are seeing a lot of banks coming into crypto. On the other hand, and it is true, we have to say it as well, MiCA is also killing companies, small companies who will not have the funds to get through the licensing process. So the industry is becoming more and more mature with bigger and bigger players. And the second thing I wanted to say is that MiCA is supposed and is harmonizing the way things are done in Europe, but it is actually moving the competition from the legislation to the regulator side. And regulators today are not interpreting MiCA exactly in the same way. So companies like Coinhouse or like Bybit are choosing the countries they go to, depending on the way regulators interpret MiCA. And that's actually a big thing. I guess we're going to talk about it later. But in France, we have a very serious regulator who had anticipated a lot, which is good. But since it is also a very serious regulator, things can be a bit more slow and a bit more difficult. You have to earn it. You have to earn your French license.
Really have to earn the French license, the trust of the French authorities, but then how does this translate to other jurisdictions, right? And how, for example, sometimes the French authorities might perceive the licenses coming from other jurisdictions. I think this is a topic that we really wanted to get across in this panel. So maybe we can also start with Matteo, who has a very specific expertise and experience in Malta. So he can tell us a bit more about the experience, the challenges there, and maybe share your thoughts on this conversation around some of the jurisdictions that are giving out licenses.
Yeah, so to me, maybe I'm biased because it puts food on the table, but policy and regulation is the way forward. If we want crypto to become widely adopted and to become a day-to-day use, we need regulations because that gives the public trust and confidence in the system. Is MiCA perfect? Far from it. But if you've seen the first drafts of MiCA, they were far worse. Policy is not a one-and-done thing. It is something that grows as time goes along, but it is something that we need to take steps towards. I mean, as Claire was saying, I also have experience with a very strict regulator. I deal with the MFSA nearly every day. The benefit that Malta has is that before MiCA, we had a virtual assets framework, which was nearly a copy of Mika, if anything, a bit more strict than Mika is nowadays. And the regulator had 5 years of experience dealing with that before they had to transition to Mika, which made them more able to preempt most issues. We still have questions, we still have issues coming up, such as the PSD2 overlap, which I'm sure we'll discuss throughout this panel, which it does sort of frustrate me that in the 5 years that we were discussing Mika, these things don't come up then, and they come out as soon as we're starting to implement. At this point, the industry, at least in Europe, is at a point where we're starting to implement a regulation which can put us at the forefront of the crypto industry worldwide. But unfortunately, there's been goalposts moving all over the pitch. They've gone forward, they've gone backwards, sideways, up, down. And that, to me, is what truly kills the smaller players. Because if there is a player who has the money to go through an application, as soon as they've gone through that application, you suddenly move the goalposts and you tell them that they need to jump through another hurdle. Or even worse, you tell them to jump, but you don't tell them through where. This sort of uncertainty is what sows doubt in the crypto industry, and that sows doubt into people who are willing to invest their money into it. Certainty comes through implementation, and it comes through repetition, and that will take time. So I think we need to trust in what we have while still aiming to grow it, and still aiming to improve it, but let's not reinvent the wheel just yet.
All right, thank you, Matteo. And last but not least, in our great panel today, we have Nicolas from Bybit. And I think, we have been working together now for some time also on some of these issues. I think Nicolas can also share a bit of his perspective on how their licensing process has been going, but also then on some of these pending questions that we're looking at when it comes to Mika, its future implementation, and potentially its future iteration. So, share any thoughts you want to share on this?
Sure. I guess lots of interesting thoughts have been said. Just to contribute, I would like to take a step back and say that we are in the arms race with the regulators. So crypto is an arms race with the regulators, and you know who's going to win. It's crypto, for a very, very simple reason, that crypto has infinite resources and it's unified. While regulators, we've seen very different positions across the globe, and especially in Europe as well. Now, crypto is going to win also because it attracts the best talent. And I dare say that a gentleman or lady finished university in France would have to choose either go and work for the great company with great growth opportunities like Coinhouse, or go work for the ministry. And I'm pretty sure 95% would go for the Coinhouse, because most likely double the salaries and double the opportunities. And this is where the future is. Where the talent goes is where the future is. So I'm pretty sure crypto is going to win. Now, the more important question is who's going to lose? And if we look 20 years back, when the most talent went to investment banking, the best paid jobs, most opportunities, the most talented and hardworking people were there. Creating products that few rating agencies could understand, let alone regulators follow and supervise. And at that time, customers suffered. And I believe that Mika is giving a very, very different perspective, where actually crypto, private sector is working with the governments so as to avoid the mistakes that were made 20 years ago. And I believe that this is a really important and changing the whole platform on how we develop the ecosystem. And the most important part in this journey is that the trade associations and communities that bring to it. It's what Tommaso and Claire are doing in their respective playfield, is bringing together this perspective of the private sector and working in collaboration with the government institutions in trying to build the framework together so as to avoid the mistakes that we had 20 years ago. So Mika is a great thing. Building communities is very important. And guys, what you do is of tremendous help. And we, as Bybit, really proud to be part of Tommaso, your and Claire, your organizations. So thank you so much.
Well, Thank you for the shout-outs. Really appreciate, of course. And indeed, I think Nicolas obviously is pointing out to what is happening, around Mika, right? So yes, we got the legislation, the proposal by the European Commission, but then there has been such a long process actually since 2019, 2020 to get us where we are today. Where indeed there was this dialogue, there was this conversation going between the private sector and the public authorities, and it keeps going to today, right, until today, because there are still a lot of questions, a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. So let's try and delve a bit into that, because I think here we all are really working in the depth of these challenges, but I think it could be interesting for the audience that maybe are not following so closely what's happening in Brussels and all around the European Union on what really are the challenges right now in the implementation of MiCA, and what are the challenges, what are the problems that might bring us to already discuss a MiCA 2.0 way earlier than potentially expected. So now it's free-flowing, guys. I don't want to go one after the other anymore. So let's have a nice conversation. Please jump in, respond to each other, disagree. Let's get started. Nicolas.
Yes, I think that I've been hearing a lot of sort of criticism and concerns that, well, they're going to reopen MiCA. There's going to be a new legislation. And myself, in my previous life, I've been issuing laws as a member of parliament. And it's a very natural thing that laws evolve. Laws are not set in stone. And it's natural that they change. Now, the MiCA, the first time it was introduced was what? More than 5 years ago. Just look at how the crypto, the blockchain industry evolved over that time. The trilateral agreement was what, 3 years ago, implementation and became the law 2 years ago. So many things have changed. So, and if they reopen it in a year's time or 2 years' time, or they start discussing now, it's a very natural process and something that we should not be against, that we should not be afraid. We should rather work together to make sure that the outcome that is, it safeguards the financial stability, and it does not damage the ecosystem in a way, in the process. So I believe that we should not be afraid of it, but we should be open and start working with it so that we have our say in it.
I totally, sorry, Nick,
That's how we like it. Go for
okay.
it. Yes, we love it.
I totally agree. But the key point here is when is the right time to do it? Because maybe now it seems a bit premature because now we are still trying to understand what MiCA is regulating. Of course, we need to amend it or we need to improve it. But we need to find the perfect timing, which is not easy. And please go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the law is fluid, and if the law never evolved, we'd still have the laws we had thousands of years ago. So it's very important that we keep growing and we keep analyzing. The problem is that currently we have the blueprint for a house, which is MiCA. We've started implementing it and put up the first walls. If we change the blueprint now, you might end up with a shower in your kitchen. So let's take it step by step. And in fact, there are clauses in MiCA which allow for reports to reanalyze. I'm always open to a discussion that pushes the law. It's just that it's important that we make sure that we've at least started to implement it and we can take a lessons learned approach, because otherwise we're just shooting in the dark as we have for the past 5 years because we never implemented it. So yes, the law should evolve and we should analyze MiCA in the same way that many other laws. I think we're up to, I don't know which version of AMLD, for example, and that shows progress. That is good. So MiCA 2.0 is good, but it needs to come at the right time, as Marina said. There is a time and a place for everything, and I think we should implement, take a step back, analyze, and then push forward, because otherwise you've got regulators and NCAs who are just starting to implement something and then it might need to change. You've got companies like ours that advise clients. We've just started advising one thing, but then next week I'm going to have to tell you something else. I mean, the benefit with EU legislation is it takes time to happen. It's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to change next week. It's going to take a few years. So at least that'll give us the time to adapt. As I said, the frustration is that certain things I would have assumed would have popped up earlier. But at the end of the day, that is also the process of legislation.
I do agree. There's a matter of timing, but there's also a matter of content. And I don't think we should be naive because if, for example, the European Commission decides to reopen MiCA soon and to push for a MiCA 2, I don't think that they will do it in order to protect or help the industry. They will do it to protect the investors, the customers. So it means that if we want MiCA to be helpful and to foster the development of the crypto ecosystem and industry, it also means that we have to be prepared and we have to explain to the legislator and to the regulator what we want. And I'm thinking, for example, of the stablecoins topic, because in Europe we lack regulated and real euro stablecoins with volume. So this is a big topic that we could push in the MiCA 2. But of course, we would be more at ease if we had more time before MiCA 2 and if we didn't have a second version of MiCA in a few months.
In France, we know it quite well, and stability does not help the business at all, from a political point of view, but also from a regulatory point of view. And clearly, right now, even if MiCA is a great improvement, it has been quite fast in terms of the way we have been discussing with the Commission and the other people involved. They did not necessarily listen to us as they should have done. And the conclusion is the text, even if it's a great improvement, is imperfect. There are a lot of things that are missing on the positive way and the negative way as well. They say nothing about DeFi, nothing about some aspect, but they don't consider also agency model, which is something which might be very important. Now we are talking about how the stablecoin could be considered as a means of payments, and so called under the PSD2, PSD3, rather than under MiCA, which sounds quite stupid in some way. So I think we need probably a pause. Put maybe on the table also with all the players, the ones that are really implementing and doing the job, all the questions, and maybe also having more clarity around Europe between regulators and CAs regarding their interpretation of regulation. There are some countries in Europe where it seems to be okay to work with USDT, which in some way is just forbidden. In some countries, it's okay to get your funds not segregated and put in an exchange mixed with whatever other funds, and you could get MiCA. In some other, it's not. You've got some people interpreting lending as a banking activity. Some others say, okay, lending is not MiCA, so you can do whatever you want, and that's it, and that's fine. So I think it's the right time to call for putting the things on the table and making sure that everyone in Europe is talking with the same type of interpretation, because once again, instability, when something is not clear, it's not easy to develop your business, and we are making a business. So it's something that needs to be taken into account.
And,
I think
and NCA, sorry. NCA's coordination should be the first step. I mean, because what about the late statements from one NCA attacking other NCAs because of the more softened requirements or interpretations? This is not helping the industry, and this is not helping the credibility we want to provide.
I agree. I'm not working for an NCA.
No, I know.
I agree.
Nicolas, you wanted to jump in on this?
Yeah, sure. We've all seen the statement from the three NCAs. So France, Italy, and Austria would like to have a centralized supervision, as they said. But the reality, that the crux of the message that they're sending is that they want to have a high regulatory standard across EU. European Commissioner is supporting that and saying we need a better, more integrated capital markets, more globally compliant and competitive capital markets, so that we could compete with the US, we could compete with Asia. We need more competition and more competitive EU. So those are noble objectives, and it would be unwise for us to stand in the way of that. It's not about the question central or decentral supervision. The question is that the fragmented markets within EU are hindering competitiveness of EU, are making the standards not even across EU, and creates opportunity for jurisdictional arbitrage, shopping for better jurisdictions. And crypto companies, they don't make money in finding a country with the lowest regulatory standard. Our business is serving customers as best as we can, compliantly, sustainably, so they get the service and they come back to us without us actually spending too much time on choosing which market to get the license. So the single, common, high regulatory standard across EU would benefit everyone. Now the question is which route, whether it's central supervision, whether it's a new regulation, whether there's some regulatory standards that would come out. It's a big question. Let's work on it. And also agree that whichever decision is taken, it's not rushed, it's not made in a month or two, it doesn't damage the ecosystem, it safeguards financial stability, but the high standards, high regulatory standards would benefit everyone.
But just a second, I just, of course I agree, but I just need to disagree in one point because our perspective is different, of course, and we have a lot of clients asking, the first question they ask is, okay, what's the easiest jurisdiction to get the MiCA license? This is the first question.
But that's the wrong approach.
Of course it is.
That's the wrong approach.
But is this the reality? Is this what's happening now? But of course it's wrong. Of course. And this is what we need to try to avoid. We don't want this to happen.
Over the last year, as MiCA has been implemented throughout Europe, the cash has been raining over consultants, lawyers, independent board members. I come from a small but very ambitious country, Lithuania. We had 500 WASPs last few years. Every one of them needed an MLRO, an independent board member. Half of Lithuania were independent board members. Fantastic opportunity for the ecosystem in Lithuania, but the competition is so much bigger than Lithuania or France or Spain or Sweden. We're in a global competition, and we need to be more competitive. And the single high regulatory standard would help in us devoting all our resources in serving customers as opposed to trying to find a better jurisdiction with a lower standard.
Yeah, and to add to that, I do believe that a common regulatory standard is ideal. But let's not forget, we're 9.5 months into MiCA implementation. Some countries up till a few months ago did not even have NCAs appointed. It takes time, and it takes making mistakes, and it takes, someone doing something wrong and being told, and that's a lesson learned. I agree we need I agree that we need a higher regulatory standard across the board. The problem is, if you have centralization, then you go into the delegation of powers, etc. So you have a million other issues. I have had many people ask me throughout my career in this industry, and even today, what's the easiest route? And my advice is, don't choose the easiest route. Choose the route that once you're regulated, you don't need to go back. Because there's many, and we saw this in Malta when everyone was hyping us up as the blockchain island, 5 years ago. When people showed up and they saw that there was actual regulation they need to comply with, everyone fled. And they went to easier countries throughout the EU and abroad. They got the easier route, and now they're scrambling and panicking to try to get a MiCA license. Whereas people who stuck to it and actually went through the process and became regulated properly are finding an easier route now. So yes, there will be easier routes, and people are more than free to take them. But my advice always is choose the best regulated route, because that's going to give you the least change. The problem is that now we're trying to sell the EU as the best regulated route, but we're also changing the regulations, which shows uncertainty. So the thing that we're trying to sell, that if you come to the EU, you have certainty, you have stability, it's being undermined on a different level. And that is what sort of makes people jump ship. And that is what scares me, that will kill this industry before it's even born.
Yeah, thank you, Matteo. And I'll just, it's a very easy panel to moderate, as you can see, because the speakers have things to say. They disagree with each other. Love it, making my job very easy. But let me try and sum up a few things that we heard so far, right? Also, because I think when people in the industry, they're looking at Mika and they're wondering how can Mika be improved, their reaction would be, that Mika needs to be less restrictive, right? Easier for companies to set up in Europe to get a license, lower costs of compliance. We also talked about, or we briefly mentioned the fact that the Mika license might not be enough, because if you're touching stable coins, for example, if you're providing transfer services for stable coins, then you might also need a PSD2 license. So there is a lot of regulatory requirements that, as we just heard, are actually diminishing that regulatory, on the one hand, like the regulatory, like the environment that we were trying to make appealing for the industry to come to Europe, right? We did Mika because we said, okay, well, the United States has no regulatory certainty at all. So the European Union has a very important opportunity to say, look, we are going to provide this regulatory certainty for the industry. But now this regulatory certainty is potentially put at risk because it's already been questioned. Some of the issues that we heard is also in terms of, as Matteo was saying, the license that a certain jurisdiction will give you, it's also the way that this is perceived by other regulators is very important. The statement that was mentioned earlier by the French, Austrian, and Italian authorities is somehow putting in question the idea of passporting. And passporting is the main principle of Mika, right? That you get one license in one member state, and because it's a regulation, and because in theory we should have these common regulatory standards and high standards in the different approaches by the different jurisdictions, that same Mika license can then allow you to provide and passport your services across the whole European Union. But this is also now being put into question. So I think that was also interesting for the audience to understand that when we're talking about Mika 2, it's not actually to make it easier for the industry. Potentially, the issues, the problems that they are being discussed or being thrown around as reasons why Mika needs to be reviewed already soon are the ones that we were talking about in terms of supervision and global stablecoins and the multi-issuance. So maybe we have, the last 10 minutes, last final round, because basically what we, the conversation that we've been having is all about policy versus progress, right? And I think Nicolas was saying it earlier, I think, right? Or Mykolas as well. Nicolas. Apologies for that. But policy is trying to keep up with a very fast innovative sector. It's like probably the short answer to this is no, right? But at the same time, there are processes, there are ways in which we can adapt our legislation to make sure that is forward-looking, future-proof, and actually can be amended when things in the industry are changing. So let's use this last 10 minutes for last round of comments on all of these challenges. What do you think is the biggest challenge? What do you think should actually deserve basically reopening Mika already in a short time frame because you think that it's a real problem that we need to address? And then if we have a last few minutes, we try and see if the audience also has some questions for us. So big last round, free flow as before.
I would like to just point out, it's not exactly what you're asking for, just a little point here. I think that one of the biggest problems we are facing in Europe is the way that extra-European countries look at us. Because when you travel abroad and you are trying to convince some crypto companies to move or to expand to Europe, for example, in Asia, they say, oof, no, Europe is too complicated, it's not worth it, it's a nightmare, I'm not dealing with Mika. So we are really losing competitiveness here. We need to change this view because they don't want to come. That's the big point.
Yes, and I would also add, there's another problem in the way that Europe is seeing itself and is considering itself. We are often seeing ourselves as a market of consumers for foreign players, but we should also have our own champions, and that's super important, I think. And this is why it could be worth it to reopen Mika, because of course we need foreign investors, we need foreign companies, but we don't need only that. We need to have our own companies. And one of the topics that we are pushing at ADAN at the moment is the development of euro stablecoins, because this is key if we want to have a monetary sovereignty in Europe, to have euro stablecoins that have volume, that are circulating within retail and within financial institutions. And I think MiCA at the moment is not helping the development of euro stablecoins. So that could be a real good angle that the industry could push for in a second version of MiCA.
Any of the gentlemen?
Yeah, on my side, I will agree with Mykolas about the fact that we need to be competitive in Europe. And this is a global market, and we have to take into account the evolution also in the US. As you said, Tommaso, they were in late with the crypto regulation, but now it has been changing. And you have seen also the Genius Act, for instance, regarding stablecoin. I'm not in favor of MiCA too. I would definitely call more for like a convention with the private sectors and some regulators in order to put some stuff on the table. And if we have to call for something, for clarity, it would be for stablecoins. The fact that stablecoins could be considered as means of payments because of transfer, and then we need, in that case, if you don't have one, to have a payment institution license or whatever license, which are not necessarily fully applicable with crypto because it does not apply with the same technology, it does not work. And on the same time, you are already MiCA, so it means that you already fulfill a lot of compliance issue regarding crypto assets. It's quite stupid. So it's over-regulation. It's regulation for regulation. So what do you want to protect? What is the subject? So put the subject on the table. Let's discuss it, and let's after see if it's DSP3 or if it's MiCA 2, MiCA 3, MiCA 4, Mikado, whatever, and we'll see.
For me, I think a lot of what we're saying is we're all open to discussion. It just needs to be done well. And in my opinion, I was just having a chat with Tommaso about this right before the panel. I mean, obviously, there's great entities doing work like Blockchain for Europe and ADAN who are working to get the crypto industry's views into the regulators' understanding. The problem is, I think the crypto industry, you know, we all want to be decentralized. We all want to be punks. We don't want to speak to the guys in suits. I get it. It's cool. It's anarchist. I get it. But these are the people making the decisions that impact our industry. As an industry, we need to be able to push, we need to be able to lobby, we need to be able to consult. I mean, the closest thing to the crypto industry in terms of substance is the banking industry. And the banking industry has been lobbying the regulators, you know, since the beginning of time. Unless we're trying to play on the same level playing field, we're going to be, the crypto industry is going to be run out of the room. So we need to make sure that we're getting our message across. We're getting our message across in a language that they understand, because that is usually the problem. And unifying as an industry to target the main points, as Nicolas said. Let's choose the points which are the biggest pain points. Let's discuss those. Let's grow the regulation where we need, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's be realistic. Let's discuss and let's get our message across, because it's useless for us to meet here, to meet in every other crypto convention and complain and moan that the regulators aren't listening to us. The message needs to go out and we need to speak to them.
Thank you for the shout outs again, Matteo. Appreciate that. Nicolas?
I think a lot of nice things have been said. I would like to see less confrontation between the regulators and the industry. And often what we've been seeing in the last few years, that whatever the regulator says, the industry says no and then tries to work out something. So I think that we should be listening to the regulators better, understand the cause of their concern, and try to work with them together. For example, they're concerned about the customer protection. They're concerned about the financial literacy. Our CEO this morning, Ms. Mazurka, said that, look, guys, let's cooperate on education. Let's educate communities across European Union so that the financial literacy is such that they understand the products, they understand the risks that they're taking, and that the industry becomes much more sustainable. And in that way, we would make much even more influence on the regulators who are elected by the same communities. And in that way, the community that we're in would be much more sustainable in itself. So I believe that, first of all, less confrontation and listening to what the regulators have to say. Two is working with them and trying to minimize those risks that they brought up. And number three is building communities. And I believe that communities is the strongest power of crypto industry. This blockchain convention is a wonderful thing. It builds community, builds strength. And if you look at the largest global powers, right, they come from the source of communities. You like it, you don't, MAGA, Make America Great Again, Tea Party, Conservative Party, those are communities that bring the power. You agree, disagree, but this is the way that the power is constructed. Exactly the same way the crypto power is being constructed. This one is a great event. The one we had just recently, Token in Singapore, those who have been, it's insane amount of people that you have there. And they're all motivated, talented people coming together, build things together. And I believe that these community building exercises that Tommaso and again Clara are doing is just wonderful. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you again, and I think those are some very nice call to actions to also end our debate. Maybe not the one about creating MAGA for crypto. I don't think that's the way we should go about this, but absolutely, I think very, very important reminders there. I would love to get a question, at least one question. He was the fastest, so let's go for it. Thank you.
You've been waiting for that.
I was waiting for it, yes.
He was ready.
Okay, I have one question, and one is for Mykolas, right? And mi amiga Marina, yes? So it's about AI plus crypto, right? We all have been talking about crypto and legislation about crypto, but we did not touch the part of combining crypto and AI. So how you guys are seeing this, the part of the legislation about crypto and the other part of the legislation about AI working together. So how do you guys see that working in the near future?
Well, my take, first of all, if the MiCA regulation is complicated, the AI regulations are
Even worse.
yeah, far beyond. So if we are trying to mix, of course, these two technologies have to work together and will work together and are working together. Complying with laws, with regulations, at the same time with two super tough regulations is super hard. I mean, we are not there yet in terms of from a legal perspective, okay? Because the implications here are massive, and the AI regulations are extremely difficult to implement. So I think that we will get to it, but we are not now ready to be aware of the legal implications of it. Of course, it will happen, but I think that we need to go deeper still.
I think that the question is spot on, the gentleman that raised that the opportunities that we will have from AI and blockchain combination are infinite, enormous in terms of product development, in terms of customer service, in terms of risk management, in terms of data management that comes out of it. So the combination of the two is just incredible. And I'm pretty sure that we'll see exactly the same thing that we've seen with crypto, that the business will go much further out and the regulation will be starting to catch up. And I will come back to the point that it is incredibly important that we start engaging the authorities as soon as possible so that we actually work with them together and avoid the things that happen, for example, in the United States, where the crypto companies have been evolving and making lots of services for the customers, and then learning that perhaps the regulation or the license was not there that was supposed to be. So I believe that it's important that we start working with NCAs, with the authorities, in building the framework, the legal framework, so it captures, it protects the customers, but also doesn't hinder innovation and opportunities. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the question. I think we're closing off again on the main topic, right? Can regulation, can policy keep up with innovation? Again, the short answer is that it's complicated, but as you could hear today, there is a lot going on. There is a lot of discussions, and the intention is there, right? The intention is to look at these very innovative Web3 sector, which also includes AI and blockchain and all the innovative technologies, and imagining how can we make the most out of the digital future, the digital economy, and how can we regulate that in a way that protects consumers, protects the monetary sovereignty and the stability of the financial system, but at the same time allows for this innovation to keep innovating, to keep going, and bring Europe potentially in a lead position in the Web3 race. So on that note, I think we're going to close here. Thanks everyone for listening to us. A big round of applause for our panelists, please. And thanks again to European Blockchain Convention for having us. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.